being recorded. I'm going to introduce our guests, and they're going to say a little hello if that's okay as well. So, Duncan, hello.
Hello.
Morning. Hello,
Morning.
Duncan in the linen trousers. He's comfortable and roomy, which is always a good thing. Duncan, you've taken us through storytelling for the past week. You're actually joining us next week as well, so you get 2 weeks of Duncan, which is almost unheard of, I think. So it's a proper treat for you. So, Duncan, tell me something fabulous about your week. What's gone well for you this week?
What has gone well for me this week? I did a session at a conference yesterday. That could have been the most boring session at a conference because it was entitled "Navigating University Finance Systems." But my participants' feedback was that it wasn't the most boring and it was in fact useful. So that is a good thing.
Yay!
Yay.
Again, unheard of. Finance, universities, interesting and useful. That I don't think that's ever happened before. So Duncan clearly is a miracle worker. So you're in good hands here today. That's fantastic. Duncan, hello. Jill, hello. I'm pointing at you
Hi.
because you're over here on my screen.
Yeah.
How are you? What's been happening for you this week? What's worked out well for you?
I'm really good, thank you. It's only Tuesday, but I am an avid sea swimmer, and something that went well for me this week is I found some other people that love to do it as well. So I've now got some friends to come in the sea with me on a regular basis. So not really work related, but definitely bravery, because I go in without a wetsuit most of the year.
And you, just to be clear, you live in the northeast, don't you? You're
Live in
not
the
currently in India or anywhere fabulous. Like, okay.
northeast. So I got some other people to be really brave and come in, and yeah, so that went really well this week. Enjoyed
That's incredible. So some other maniacs without wetsuits.
Yeah. And we're doing it again tomorrow morning if anybody wants to join us. 8 o'clock, sea and beach. Get yourself there.
Jill, you have some keen supporters there.
Looks like it. Everybody looks really happy with that suggestion.
Thank you for being here, Jill. And Jill, you're very often joined with Billy, and that is the case today. So both Billy and Jill have taken you through pitch and presentation expertise. Billy, how are you today, and what's been happening for you since we saw you last?
Good, thanks. Hello, everyone. Well, it's a positive and a negative. What's been good for me this week is that I haven't been verbally abused by my children so far this week. My youngest, Lucy, who's 5, likes to bring me back down to earth. And I try to just, add humour, make her laugh. And I did it over the weekend, and I tried to tell her a joke, and she just tutted and went, "I really need to get a better dad," and walked out the room, which was nice of her. So my success this week is not so far. I've sort of kept out of her way, so I'm in good spirits.
You've not been traded in yet?
No.
It sounds like she's fully planning it, though. I would jump under the bed for the notes that she's making.
Her mind's always going like that. She's just brutal. Just with me as well, which is nice.
I think she's my hero. So bring her next time, please. She's amazing. Brilliant. Right. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And again, it's an early start, so you all look very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Laura thankfully set up the chat function as well, so please do make use of that, because it's a good place while people are talking and pitching to park your questions. We will review it as much as we possibly can, but please don't worry too much either if you don't get that opportunity today, because I can pass on your questions and your comments and your thoughts to our presenters. They're very generous people, and they've mentioned that now and again they'll be able to get back to us within reason. So don't worry too much if we run out of time and you've got a final thought, but use the chat, but wave your hands at me as well. If I miss you, then give me another chance to notice you as well. I think Laura was asking as well about films, so we've got Moana from Duncan. I think that says quite a lot about you, Duncan. Are you sure? Is that
Child? I love it. I'm a big fan of Disney films in general. Before Moana, top of the list was Inside Out, which is great if you don't know Inside Out. But now I watch Moana for the first time, and it's just brilliant, and it makes you happy and smiley and cry and want to sing. And my partner now has been singing the main song in the shower for the last week, really loudly every morning. At 6:30 because she's a nurse.
So it backfired massively. Jill, you were talking about Jaws. You've been to see Jaws? Oh no, you've shown Jaws at home. Is that right?
We introduced the kids to Jaws because it is an epic movie. It goes down in kind of the top ever movies in history. But my kids thought it was hilarious because the special effects are slightly out of date. But yeah, you've just got to have some imagination, really.
You do, very much so, yeah. I remember when Jaws came out in 3D, I think it was the first thing I'd seen in 3D, which is very clearly shown I am in. But you know, it's a fact, it happened, and it was absolutely terrifying. But to look back now, you just think there's scarier things in my bath than there are on the screen right now. So.
After I watched it for the first time when I was probably about 9, I didn't dare go to the toilet for like a week, just in case. You never know.
Yeah, I wonder if that's still in the back of your mind now, just in case.
There's more jellyfish in the sea these days than sharks, I think.
That's very true. We've got a jellyfish-tastic at the coast right now.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. Right, so you've met us now. You know what we like and the types of daft stuff that we'll share with you. But it's your turn now to go into smaller rooms, and you've been asked by our 3 trainers this week to prepare some stuff. Now, some of you right now are sliding under your table and thinking, oh, I meant it. We were meant to prepare something and do something. Yes, you were. But we appreciate that life gets in the way. So we'd like you to go into the rooms. You'll have a facilitator each to share your progress. You'll be challenged and pushed a little bit to be brave and have a go. The rooms are not recorded, so this is an opportunity for you to try something. You might get some stuff wrong, and that's okay. Because you're in safe hands with people who can help you and guide you on the right path. But it's an opportunity as well to get some feedback from your colleagues on the course. It's going to feel weird because this isn't a normal thing to do at 9:45 on a Tuesday morning, but have a go anyway. We talked about this quite a lot last week. Then we'll invite you back into the room after around about half an hour or so. Please. Ideally, we'd have at least one person from each room share their 3-minute pitch or their story or our communication of some sort for the others to hear that and gain some feedback from the rest of us. And if you have a go, you'll win prizes. So this is like Hook a Duck, but with really cool prizes. So you will get some, because we appreciate how much effort it takes and how much risk it might feel to do something as unusual as this. But it's one of the best opportunities you'll get to have a go. So, Laura, if I could ask you to send people away with one of our wonderful people, trainers here, and then we'll welcome you back shortly after. Thank you. How are we all?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, marvellous, very good. Thank you, Alexei, that's fantastic. So, Laura and I have been having a chat about other stuff, but I realised that I haven't got a clue what's just happened. So it'd be really helpful. We have around about another half an hour or so to go through your thoughts and share your experiences. Ideally, one of you from each group will be fully prepared to share your pitch, presentation, communication story, whatever we want to call it, for the big prizes, obviously. But I can't come around and knock on your door and make you do it. So it's a huge encouragement and invitation to have a go and see what happens. And it'd be interesting to hear from all of you, but we haven't got time for that. So from each of the room facilitators, how did it go? What did you think? Jill?
We had some really good conversations in our group. I think everybody found it useful. Everybody said they found it useful. Lots of questions, which is really good.
Okay.
And hopefully there's a little bit more context around the pitch training set there. Yeah, and we did have one person who was very brave and pitched to the group, which was brilliant, and got some really good, strong feedback. So I feel that we've got one willing participant to pitch to everybody.
Because I can see her smiling. Oh my God. Okay, amazing. Great. So there were quite a few questions and some clarifications, that kind of thing that happened there. Jill, it might be worth us offline having a bit of a think about what those questions were, and maybe we could post them to the whole group at a later date, just so that we can share some of those thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I can send a paragraph or so of what the questions were with the answers underneath. Not a problem.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Billy, how did we get on?
Good. I spent the first 5 minutes just discussing how much they all hated you, but we got past that. And then after that, they were all fine. No, they all of my room pitched, which was great.
Wow.
So they all gave it a go, and really good and really high standard, I thought. And again, you know, some amazing research studies going on, which is, you know, means you'll always say, I don't always know everybody that's doing it.
Yeah.
But no, really good. And we all give feedback. So there's lots of peer feedback, and obviously I chipped in as well. But no, it went well, I thought.
Excellent. And is there any brave souls from your room who's going to share for the main group?
Yeah, Karis was going to do it.
Karis. Excellent. Karis, or are there anybody else? Now that we're here and you can see how wonderful and friendly we are, anyone else want to have a go? We'll come back to you. Okay. All right. Thanks, Billy. Duncan, how did we get on?
We did good. I was really impressed. We had we had 4 people pitch, a combination of just outlines and starting to pull things together, and a couple of people with full pitches they practiced. Really impressed. We had some interesting chat around statistics and numbers and data, and how when you're dealing with quite hard conceptual stuff, how deep to go, and a bit of chat about when you're dealing with difficult subjects like stroke and sort of medical issues that can be a bit depressing, or depression, how you do that without making everybody confront their own mortality and feel terrible about life. So that, I hope, was really interesting and useful. My group, we didn't pick somebody to have a go, so I'm going to have to lean on the people who've got pitches in my group. One of you to volunteer to share it with the group. You get a cool prize.
You do.
You do.
Anybody from Duncan's group want to wave at me and have a go? Bearing in mind that Pavlina and Karis are all, there we go, there's the link.
Alex is in, there we go.
Excellent, well done, good for you, Alex, that's great. Okay, so before we have the pitches, any thoughts from you as learners, how that went for you? So Laura posed some questions to you. What did you enjoy about this week's content? What worked well for you? Any thoughts?
I had a very general question, which.
Okay, Alex, thank you.
But I just wanted to know their thoughts on if you have something that you feel has like a very broad impact. Is it better to just pick one specific example and then you can tell a story about that example, or is there a better way to sort of talk about a broad impact without sort of talking about lots of little things and sort of distracting from the main story?
Here's your question to you, Alex.
Any.
Okay. Should we start with Duncan, because Alex mentioned stories?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one of the difficult things about broad research. So fundamentally, the tighter and more focused the story on an individual case, an individual case study, and an individual person, kind of the more we care. Right, when numbers start affecting whole populations or big people, it's harder to put ourselves in the shoes of lots of people than it is to put ourselves in the shoes of one person. So what you can do is tell quite a specific case study and then multiply that up by X number of people in the population. So my group, I gave an example about dementia because I know it. So 60% of people over 80 will get some form of dementia. If you tell one little focused example of what getting dementia looks like and means to life and get us involved and care about it, you can then use the stat of 60% of people over 80 get it to multiply the impact of that across its sort of broader reach. Does that make sort of sense?
I'm just going to jump in as well, Alex. The way I would approach that as well is definitely give a specific example. So really go down, you know, it's a broad range. We're looking at all of these aspects, but here's how it would work in the real world, and give a specific example. And you can always follow it up with, So, because what you can't do with something as broad as that is give a specific example and then give more specific examples, because you'll go on for too long. But what you can do is go, here's how it could work in one area, and then follow it up. But it's also relevant for this area, and this area, and then move on to something else in your presentation. So you're making it crystal clear that it's not just for the example you've given. That actually it covers other areas, but you're not going to go. They understand that, you know, if it's a 3-minute pitch, a 10-minute pitch, you cannot give all of them examples. That's not possible. And you're leaving the door open for follow-up questions. And you're also leaving the door open for you to answer those follow-up questions by giving more examples.
Don't give all your best examples away immediately, because then you've got nothing to show off with when you get questions. But for your research specifically, Alex, because you've got the impact is potentially, you know, vast, everything. Alex studies atoms. The world is made of atoms. So your impact is potentially huge. But what you could do is pick, say in a longer talk, you've maybe got 3 case studies or 3 examples you want to do. If they are significantly varied, so one is talking about technology, one is talking about drugs, which are 2 of the things you mentioned, and then one is talking about something else quite different to those 2, that the breadth of you've only picked 3 examples, but the breadth of those examples gives us an indicator of the breadth of the impact as a whole.
Yeah.
Does that kind of follow?
Thanks.
Any final thoughts, Joe, on Alex's question?
It helps if you take yourself off mute, doesn't it? That always helps. No, I agree with what Billy and Duncan have said. One specific example is better than 25 specific examples, and you can follow that later at the end. You will be asked questions, you can then hone in on some other examples, but and I know Duncan covers this in his training as well, but the compelling story that Duncan's already alluded to, that we can associate if it's you know, something that's personal, or if it's something that affects a specific person in a particular way, we care. It touches our emotional part of the brain, and you are drawn into it. If you then go, and then there's this person and that person, we go, all right, okay. But if you just, you know, just focus on one, and then you can weave the others in as you move through your pitch, if you feel that it's valuable, or offer that up at the end, so I can give you some other examples of how this has had an impact in these areas too.
Could I just ask, is this more geared towards a kind of business domain, this advice? Because you do run the risk with academics of annoying them when you give like emotional case studies that they end up saying, well, that's not really got anything to do with what your research. You can tune out too much and annoy academics, I find. And I guess it's that balance between where you're pitching and who you're pitching to. I know if I stood up and give a talk and give the example of my grandfather having Alzheimer's disease and like smoking chips off his plate thinking they're cigarettes, which he used to do, that, like, because I thought about this because and Duncan's kind of emotional, appealing to the emotional side of people. I thought about using my grandfather being a war hero and then being reduced to this quivering wreck, and that my research was inspired by that. But I know in my research circle that would be frowned upon, and it would be like, don't say that. Just get to the brass tacks of your research. So I guess it's kind of, because as we discussed before, a lot of the advice seems to be geared towards stakeholders and business-oriented kind of domains, which is, I think, is great, and we need to speak in that language to get money from different resources. But to what extent would we not say that in academia to a panel that's given a fellowship, for an example?
Steve, I think you make some valid points there, and you've got to understand your own audience. So you've got to understand who you're pitching to, and also what's going to make you uncomfortable. So if you're going to be uncomfortable doing that, then it's potentially not going to come across very well either. But on the other side of things, because I've pitched in front of a panel of 16 academics to get some research spun out in Newcastle University. I did the pitch, and the first question they said was, what is your passion for this? And why are you personally going to be involved in this business? Because I hadn't put a compelling story in. And the first thing they asked me was, what's your compelling story? And why should you get involved?
Well,
Because I actually thought similar to you, Steve, in that scenario. And then the first thing said, why? Why are you getting involved in this? What's the point?
I think the other thing to remember as well, sorry, Duncan, is that if you are an entrepreneur pitching for investment, it is a completely different set of criteria. There are some similarities to the delivery of a pitch and the makeup of a pitch, but in an entrepreneurial business forum, there is a whole different set of criteria. So the criteria that we've laid out as part of the training is very much focused towards research projects. And that is backed up from the research that Billy and I have done and have spoken to the teams that pull the panels together and are responsible for issuing the grant funding. So a completely valid point. And just to touch on what Billy said, don't do anything that you're not comfortable with. And if telling that compelling story makes you feel uncomfortable and awkward, then don't tell that story.
You see, I only feel uncomfortable and awkward based on what I've been told in quite an insular community. So it's not to say that this resource isn't great, to say this is how other people think beyond your circle. Like,
So I run into this all the time. I specialize in training academics. I specialize in storytelling. This stuff comes up over and over and over. And the first bit is always, who are you talking to? So an internal lab or research group presentation meeting where everybody is familiar with the basics of research and people know why you're doing it. You've all got similar reasons. People are familiar with the problems. They just want an update on your work and how it's going. That is a very different place to talking to a lay audience or pitching or even talking at a big conference. The thing that I would challenge slightly, Steve, is that within your own research group, great, everybody's quite familiar with the subject area and what's going on. If you think about an academic conference where you've got 100 people in the audience, the thing about doing a PhD or becoming a specialist researcher is, anybody heard the phrase knowing more and more about less and less until you know absolutely everything about basically nothing, which I think is a great way to sum up becoming a specialist researcher. But what it means is that there's 5 people in the world who really care, right, about your specific tiny bit of research. Or, you know, the 15 people in your lab group, they understand it and they get on board with it. If you're at a conference of 100 people, if you go too specific and too dry without that emotional stuff, the 5 people in the room might have a great time who do care and do think your research is the most important thing in the universe. Everybody else is going to be a bit lost. And it's thinking about, at the start of my set of videos, I talk about this emotional engagement piece. And emotional engagement there and the storytelling is not there for its own sake. It's because once we care about something, we're willing to listen to the rational stuff and the information. If we don't care about it, we aren't willing to listen to that stuff. We just ignore it because it's a bit dry and boring. So you can think about it like a sliding scale. So at one end, you've got, I can't remember if I did this in the videos, you've got rational content up this end, emotional content down this end. Think about your context and your situation and your audience. Where do you position yourself on that scale? Is it an audience that wants more rational stuff and less emotional stuff? Great, go for that. Is it an audience for whom actually that you need them to really care about the stuff to listen to you because they're not fundamentally interested in your topic already? Do more of the story stuff. So it's a flexible position. And this is true for all talks and presentations. I was talking to my group about even just 3-minute pitches. I have 4 or 5 separate 3-minute pitches that I use depending on who's in the room with me. And even within those pitches, I'll have different openings and different endings and different case studies. And I change that depending on who's in the networking with me, even for a 60-second pitch. So my advice would be to collect that story, get that story of your granddad, write it down, have it as a thing you can use when you think it's going to be effective to use it. Academics being grumpy about storytelling, I have to stamp down an instinct to tell them to piss off because they're wrong. Because if I'm looking at all those faces here and I'm just with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, would you prefer academic talks to have more storytelling and emotional content? Thumbs up? Or do you want more rational stuff and more data? Thumbs down. Okay. I think I got that wrong because Jenny wants more rational stuff and data, which I don't believe. But my point is that there's a system in academia that says this is how it has to be and how it's done, and that system basically makes it easy for academics not to do any work because they just do talks like they write papers, which is boring. But so work out whether the resistance is coming just because the system says this is how it's always been and you should fit the system, or is the resistance coming because this isn't a helpful thing for the communication? And if it's just the system, maybe fight it. If actually it's more helpful for the communication to go rational, then you go hard rational. Jill and Billy, in the business world, it's the same. If you're talking to a CFO, a chief finance officer, you go hard up the finance end because they care about the numbers, they care about the rational stuff. If you're talking to the board or somebody like that, maybe you go down the emotional end because you want their backing and you want them to care. The details are for somebody else. So use stories when it works, when it's powerful, and work out if the resistance to doing it is actually because it's the wrong place or just because the system is getting in the way, and maybe challenge the system if you feel up to it. But don't burn bridges. Academics can get grumpy and vindictive. Sorry, rant over.
So on that bombshell, I'd like to invite our LAMSA sort of / volunteers to join us and share their pictures. But before we do that, we've been all sitting down for ages and ages. I think, Duncan, you're dancing, which is a good idea.
Stood up. Yeah.
So yeah, it's full permission to have a bit of a stretch. So just move your arms around. It looks weird because if I do it on my own, that's not fair. So just have a bit of a stretch, maybe stand around so that your ears are fully aerated so you can hear all the effort that's going into Pavlina, Clarice and Alex's pitches. So we're all more
aerated ears is my favorite.
Exactly,
thing.
yes.
Love my ears to be
no longer full of fluff. There we go.
Also just jump in and say it's really, really good to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Like I get in the North Sea in a swimming costume and it feels amazing. It's really hard to get there, even though I've done it a million times. Every time I drive to the beach, I worry that it's going to be cold. I know it's going to be cold. It's freezing cold. But once you're in, you will feel so much better for it. So just push yourself out of your comfort zone and you will thank yourself for doing it as well.
Good for you, Jill. Anybody going to be joining Jill after that pitch?
Yeah.
No, we've got to work on that, Jill.
Just do your 3-minute pitch. That will be the same as jumping in a cold sea.
Exactly.
I'd come in the sea, Jill, but you live too far away.
Okay, I'll meet you halfway.
Funny mouth at you.
Okay, who's going first? Should we just do it in order that we had? You're going to share your pitch, and what I'd like us to do afterwards is if anyone's got any short responses to it, so some useful feedback for Pavlina. We are short on time and there are 3 of you, so we can't go on and on and on, but it might be also that we have an opportunity to pop some responses in the chat as well, and all of the questions and the chat responses would be published and we'll send them over to you. So, Pavlina, you can hopefully get the most from this possible. So, over to you.
Thank you. I did a few changes based on the feedback that I received from the room. So hopefully I will not overrun the 3 minutes. Okay, I'm starting. Access to clean water, sanitation, and electricity is something we all here take for granted. But unfortunately, 1/4 of the world's population lives without access to adequate sanitation, and 30% of the world does not have access to electricity. At the same time, as our population is increasing fast, so is the amount of waste we are producing and the amount of energy and water we spend on cleaning this wastewater, adding more into the problem. It is known now that there is more energy trapped in wastewater than what we use to treat it. I am an environmental engineering researcher working at Newcastle University, and I'm using biological batteries to tap into wastewater and turn it into an energy resource, whilst also cleaning it. These biological batteries use bacteria found in wastewater, and when fed with any waste organic matter, such as urine, can produce electricity. I am understanding and engineering these microbes within these devices to make them better at sanitizing the waste and generating electricity. At the moment, these devices work great in the lab at small scale, and I'm looking on developing these for large-scale applications without affecting their performance and transferring this technology from the lab to the field. I am the right person to do this research because during my PhD and postdoc, I succeeded in marrying biology and engineering and transferring technology from the lab to the field. I developed, evaluated, and installed biological batteries in refugee camps and slums, which successfully turned polluted water and urine into electricity. I have identified the areas of improvement and developed a range of techniques and skills suitable for addressing them. Wastewater treatment processes are highly costly, energy intensive, and they haven't changed a lot in the last 100 years, nor they are accessible everywhere. By harnessing the inherent ability of bacteria to consume and metabolize organic matter, we can update these processes and make wastewater industry a net energy producer rather than a spender. My research can not only deliver impact to the wastewater industry, but it can deliver impact in developing countries by offering affordable ways to sanitize the waste produced whilst providing electricity to off-grid regions. It is time to end the sanitation and energy inequality in the world by offering sustainable solutions to this burning issue.
The clapping without the noise, isn't it? Otherwise we'll break everybody's computer. Pavlina, thank you for going first, going all the way through, still smiling at the end. So good for you. That potentially felt, as Jill described, walking into the North Sea in a swim costume.
I just wanted to say that while I was going through the videos and I had to do this speech, I just stopped and it was during the weekend, and I just said, no, that's too much for me. And then I had to go back again on Monday to say, okay, I'm going to try it a little bit. It was completely out of my comfort zone, and I was so scared to do it.
How do you feel now?
Relieved, and I think it was a good thing that I did it, and that's a nice community to share it with.
Excellent, good to you. I'm really pleased about that. You've got some comments in the chat already. So Marie saying, great pitch, super great work. Your pitch was really good. Your work sounds amazing, 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 amazing. So hopefully this feeling will take you through the week as well, and give you the opportunity to say more. Anybody got anything to share with Pavlina about how that pitch felt for you?
I've got a few comments, Jenny, but I don't know if you want anybody else to jump in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well done. Well done in going first as well. It's never easy, is it? I loved the bit when you said, I am the right person to do this. Really like that. To then go on and say, look, this is why I should be doing that. Your pace at the end was much better than at the start. So that's the thing I'd work on, because as you got more comfortable in your own skin, you started pausing afterwards and allowing people to retain the information. So the first sort of 30 seconds, I was trying furiously to write down clean water sanitation. I heard 30%, I heard something else, but then you'd gone on to the next bit and I didn't have time to fully. So I think just that opening bit, just slow it down a bit and allow people to take that information in, because you did that as you went further on in your pitch. Because I was writing down really good pauses after key emphasizing of things, and you were taking a breath and all of that. But well done, and you did really well.
Brilliant, thank you.
Can I just say wow, because Pavlina pitched in the group and it was great. The pitch was great to start with, and she got some really good feedback from the team with a few pointers of things to change, and you changed them immediately. Like the bit about you was phenomenal. That was added, that wasn't included in the original. So I just did massive well done from me. That was great.
Thank you, Jill. That's brilliant. And so in the space of what, 15 minutes, we've gone from one iteration to the next and always making progress, which is brilliant. Well done, Pavlina. Thank you. Caris, are you happy? Are you ready?
I think so, yeah.
I think so, no problem. Okay, no worries. Right, the mic is yours. You have around about 3 minutes.
Okay, I've tried to also make some modification, but we'll see how it goes in this iteration.
Go for it.
So my name's Caris Baker. I'm from Durham University, and I want to talk about how some of the greatest innovations that have taken place through time have taken place through a multidisciplinary angle. So if we were to think of one of the greatest innovators, Leonardo da Vinci, he integrated art, biology, maths, engineering all together to make some of the kind of greatest innovations. Now, if you're to fast forward a few centuries to today, where we're all kind of sitting, we can look that academic research is categorized into different disciplines. So within each of our universities, we sit within different departments. So we might be in a biology department, a chemistry department, a physics department. And then within these departments, we each apply to different funding streams for our funding. So if you're in engineering and physics, you might go to EPSRC. If I'm in biology, I might go to BBSRC. If I'm in medicine, I might go to MRC. So the structure that we have inherently within our universities promotes separation of these subjects. So our network, which is called Physics of Life, aims to break down the barriers that exist between these disciplines. So specifically between the physical and the life sciences. So physical being primarily physics, but also mathematics, engineering, and applying some of that knowledge to biology and medicine. We know that some of the kind of greatest research questions within the last 60 years, for example, the discovery of DNA was through a collaboration of a physicist, Watson, and a molecular biologist, Crick. And we need to promote that type of collaboration to answer some of the biggest research questions that have led now to some of the most significant advancements within biology. So the discovery of DNA led to the Human Genome Project and the genetic revolution that we're currently in. But that's just one example. So our network aims to promote researchers to engage with disciplines outside of their own and to create a community that we can then take to research councils and lobby and say, you know, we need more cross-disciplinary funding streams and not these single discipline funding streams.
Wow. Dun, dun, dun. So we're all doing this. Fantastic. Thank you, Caris. And again, well done for you for having a go. I understood everything you said, and Billy and Jill and now Duncan, we often talk about how, having worked with you guys for even a short amount of time, we leave all the more intelligent for having just been beside you. So I've learned an awful lot from them, so thank you very much. Has anyone else got any comments to help Caris with her pitch?
I can say something if nobody else wants to jump in. So I really liked it, Caris. I really liked the interdisciplinariness is really important. I really liked the Leonardo example. That was really strong. Although initially, because I didn't know, and this is maybe a context thing for your talks, I didn't know that you were science focused. I was initially going, she's talking about interdisciplinariness and not talking about social sciences and science combo collaborations and that sort of interdisciplinariness, which can lead to equally powerful things. So if the context gives that, says this is all about science, then you don't need it. If this context doesn't say this is all about science, it might be worth throwing that in a little bit. What else have I written? Tiny thing. Where is it Rosalind Franklin sit in the story of DNA and her expertise coming into that picture?
Yes, Rosalind Franklin is the unsung hero of the discovery of DNA, which I think I did mention in the previous iteration, but she's a biophysicist, so she does bridge that beautifully, biology and physics together. Yeah.
Cool. It's just a thought for any of you drawing on historic examples from any bit of academia and history, where we can, pulling out the unsung people and the people who did the work that don't get the credit. It's worth doing. And in Rosalind Franklin's case, she is a a combo researcher in her own right, which makes your point really beautifully. But even more broadly, the concept of science getting done by teams, I think, is a nice point for your research. It's not about individuals with experience; it's about teams working together, which I think is really interesting. But I was really impressed. It was nice and clear. I understood it all. Yeah, really good work.
Paris, can I ask how it felt doing that? How did you find that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I found it okay. I mean, I'm not like, oh yeah, I really love doing it, but I'm glad I did it. A bit like Pavlina said, I'm glad I've done it, because it just tests my ideas, and it's not necessarily about just pitching, it's also about writing, trying to tell people why should they care about these types of things, and trying to communicate that in different forms, whether it be this pitch or you know, on websites and stuff like that. It's just trying to draw people in. But so yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Good for you and for having a go. And you've got some really good feedback in the chat as well. So, love the example at the beginning, great pitch, really nice work as well from the network, and including Rosalind Franklin is of Crick and Watson is a really good idea. So we'll make copies of that and send it to you. Conscious of time, we've literally got 5 minutes there.
Sorry, Jenny, can I just quickly say though, before, I know we've only got 5 minutes, Carlos, you did amazing. You changed that pitch so much from just like 20 minutes ago. You did brilliant. You should be really proud of yourself. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. We might run over. We're likely to run over to give Alex his full attention. If you need to go, we understand, that's fine. The week 3 content will be released this afternoon. I'll get it done as early as I possibly can, so you can begin with that, and we'll meet again next Tuesday. Just wanted to shoehorn that in before we lose some of you. So thank you, Karis. Thank you, Pavlina. Alex, you good to go? You happy?
Yeah, I did it this morning, so I haven't memorized it, but I'll just read it from the screen. Sorry.
Okay, over to you. Thank you, Alex.
So, when was the last time you built something with Lego? A single block is pretty simple, but with many blocks you can build some very complex things. But even if we take the largest Lego structure ever built, which is a replica of the Tower Bridge, which has almost 6 million pieces, if you look closely, you can still see all the individual basic blocks making up the structure. But the real world isn't like this. It is still made from all these fundamental blocks, which are called atoms. There are many more of these atoms in a grain of sand than there are in our Lego masterpiece, over 1 trillion times more in fact, and each of these atoms is jiggling around with a different energy, all jumbled up and all interacting with each other. When we look at these, we can only see the collective effect of all these atoms, which is a big problem for understanding what exactly is happening on the single particle level. But by understanding what is happening on a single particle level, we can design new drugs for treatments, or new materials for your phone, or even a completely new type of computer, which is a quantum computer. So how can we understand what happens on the single particle level? Well, we can build an artificial system from individual atoms and build materials from the bottom up. In my research, we start with just 2 atoms side by side, which can be assembled into molecules like the Lego blocks. But to get 2 individual atoms, we need to cool the atoms down by over 1 million degrees from room temperature. To do this, we use lasers with their frequency precisely controlled, which slows them down with a sticky molasses-like force. Motion is equivalent to temperature, and by stopping atoms from moving around, we've reduced their temperature. Next, we isolate the individual atoms by focusing beams of light down to a fraction of a micrometer. These traps are so small that only a single atom can inhabit it. And by using many of these beams, we can trap many atoms and individually control them and manipulate them. So using this technique, we can then stick our atomic Lego together to build molecules. Starting with 2 atom molecules, we can then progress to more complex molecules, 3 atoms, 4 atoms, and so on. And by building molecules atom by atom, this allows us to understand the fundamental interactions between single particles, which are the building blocks of emerging technologies in the world around us.
Thank you, Alex. That was fantastic. Atomic Lego. That's it. How cool is that? I was absolutely made up, and I'm constantly surrounded by Lego as well. So I was with you all the way with that. Thank you very much. How did it feel for you, Alex, doing that?
Yeah, it was all right. I have a tendency of when I'm reading something, I put in extra words, and so I actually change my script as I'm going because I've just read it out just before. But yeah, it was okay.
Good for you. Excellent. Thank you for having a go. Any short comments for Alex from any of us?
That was brilliant, really good. And I started to write notes, and then I was so engrossed in your story, and that was just really, really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I started to write notes and I put my pen down. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I kind of went, oh. I got really interested in what you were saying, and in making that similarity with the Lego and then the introduction of sand all resonated with me. If you'd asked me to explain what atoms were and the makeup of them were before your pitch, I'd have gone, but now I have a bit of an idea of what that's all about and feel a little bit more intelligent as a result, so thanks for that.
It's always the way, isn't it? We learn a lot. Excellent. Yeah. Any other short comments for Alex?
Just a quick point on you saying you added words in, Alex. For my money, you actually slowed down a bit from how you did it in the rooms, which made it all the better. And the extra words that I spotted were an extra example about the quantum computer, which was nice. So I think you did a better job than you did in the rooms. Really well done. And this is something about practice stuff. This is going to come up next week in my video materials. You're going to be doing more talking and more practicing stuff. Practicing out loud is the best way to learn stuff for speaking. Don't get too wedded to scripts that you write, and don't worry if you change the words as you go. It's absolutely fine to change the words, and in fact it's natural, because the way we write sounds weird when you just speak it, because we write prose different to how we speak. So write a script by all means, but then when you're learning and practicing and getting stuff, don't be afraid to go off piste and change it to make it feel more natural, which is exactly what you did, Alex. And I thought it was really, really strong for that. So don't beat yourself up about changing it. It's a good thing. It's the natural progression of a presentation to change from what you write down to how you speak.
Excellent. Thank you, Duncan. And well done to Paris, to Alex and Paulina. I'll be in touch with each of you to sort out the prizes. Got to be in it to win it. Got to have a go to have the reward and the feedback. And each of our trainers have mentioned and individually that you've made progress in a short amount of time. So good for you for being part of it. And I hope that listening to other people having a go is also useful for everybody else as well. Being able to make notes if you use from now on. There are a couple of questions in the chat which I will park and I will pick up and send them through. I've made notes of all of them to our trainers. I'm going to bleed them dry and get some responses to those questions from them, and I'll send them through on an email of the chat. It's 2 minutes past 11. I promised you no longer than 11, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you again for being part of today. You've all worked super hard. Go outside, please go outside. It's a beautiful day, and even just run around just in a circle once, you know, and then come back to your screen, because there's much more fun going on out there than there is on the screen. If you need me, you know where to find me on the Teams chat. Please continue speaking to each other, supporting each other as well, because there's more of you than there are of me, so you get lots of different perspectives and support. And if there are any questions, challenges, difficulties, come and ask, and we'll do what we can to help you. A big, massive thank you to Jill, to Duncan, and to Billy, and obviously to Laura, to being with us, for being with us this morning. It's been mad, packed, busy, but super useful. I've learned some stuff, and I've worked with you guys for a long time. So thank you for being here. If you have any further questions, let me pass them on. But other than that, week 2 is done. We're now into week 3, and the content will be released this afternoon. We're into networking for researchers. Also, as Duncan has mentioned, some practicalities about communicating online, and then to get it all up in a big plan at the end that I can help you with. So, thank you very much.
Jenny, what's the
enjoy your week?
Jenny, what's the deal with the content in terms of it gets taken away on the 31st?
Yes, so access to that will be ended on the 31st.
Okay, is it possible to have any recordings of the videos or not? No.
No, you won't believe how much this costs.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry about that. Imagine if you were in the room you wouldn't be able to film us. So it's that sort of thing. We've done our best to recreate what we would do in person, but in your living room. We're all in your living room, Steve. And so you've got access to whatever we can for as long as we can. So yeah, make the most of it while you've got it.
That said, do reach out and get in touch. Drop me my Twitter is there. Drop me a DM or Twitter or something if any of the stuff in my videos coming up this week you just want to talk about it. I think Jenny's going to put me on the Teams as well, so you can chat to me there. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions and talk about things.
Cool. Thank you, Duncan. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.